Good morning, this is Angel Michael's channel. I'm Angel Michael, welcome to my channel. Today my topic is called Trump is Not My Savior, Look to Jesus. I'll be reading from an article from the Sojourner Magazine written by Jim Wallace. It's called The Religious Right Will Rise and Fall with Donald Trump. For those of you who have never heard of the Sojourner Magazine, according to Wikipedia, Sojourner is a social justice magazine for the Christian people on the far left, is what I would call liberals. Well, anyway, of course, I'm a pretty conservative person, so it's interesting I found that article. Some things I actually agree with, and I'll go ahead and start reading this article. And this is what the author, Jim Wallace, has to say. He says, President Donald Trump is a logical hero for the religious right. Judging by how he was welcomed to their values voter summit last weekend. This article was from 10/19/2017. These Christians rallied around the billionaire playboy, political bully, ethno-nationalist, and purveyor of racial bigotry. As a result, he has become the moral definition of their movement. First off, I'd like to say, I voted for Donald Trump. However, he is not my savior. I look to Jesus as my savior. He's the only person, only being that can save this country and this world. And as far as all this stuff about racial bigotry and ethno-nationalist, political bully, now he probably was a playboy, may still be. Political bully, probably. Ethno-nationalist, I don't know. But the problem is he's dumping the rest of us conservatives in as being just like Donald Trump, which that's a lie. Okay, now I'll go on with the article. The religious right will now rise and fall with Donald Trump. Trump is a national coalition, is a natural conclusion to how the religious right movement began and what it has become. When it comes to this movement, the operative word is clearly not religious or even Christian, but right. And as for the vast majority of the value voters who are white Christians, the operative word is not Christian, but white. This basically tells you they are pro-black. I'm not pro anything. I'm pro being a good person, whether you're white, black, brown, an alien from outer space. These leftists are doing their best to disrupt this country, turn people against each other. You know, I've had friends that are black and other races as well. I am not racist. And to automatically lump everybody as being a racist just shows you have a political agenda. This person right here probably believes the Black Lives Matter is a good organization, when we all know, if you do any research, they're funded by the Zionist Jew, George Soros. The man is a vile, disgusting piece of crap. He was kicked out of his own country years ago because he was a socialist communist. He is well known, and it's a fact, not just conspiracy, that George Soros and his family were Nazi collaborators who had gave information to the Nazis to have his own people exterminated. So to tell for any organization, or that's not the only organization, he's also the money backing behind the anti-fascist group, or called Antifa. These organizations are socialist communist, and they're being used to disrupt and destroy this country. So anybody that falls for this nonsense that been spouted in magazines like this has got some very serious spiritual problems. Okay, let's go on here. The longest applause for President Trump was for the right-wing white evangelicals gathered in Washington, D.C. last night, was when he brought up the flag issue, not the cross. Those standing shouting USA, USA were making a clear statement against black athletes who have been protesting racial injustice and police brutality throughout this national anthem. Well, I agree to a point what it's saying here. As Christians, the flag should not be more important than the cross. And I believe that I believe in nationalism. However, my allegiance to this country is not more important than my allegiance to Jesus Christ. Now, I do believe that there definitely are police brutality issues that need to be taken care of. But to automatically assume that every policeman out there, especially whether they're white or whatever, is not going out there abusing black people. Because we have heard many instances in which white people were also killed or abused. So it kind of seems to go, it doesn't seem to matter which race it is. There are always bad people in every organization. And it seems to me that they are allowing this. Now, we all know that this country has been taken over by the communist regimes. The Vatican, the Jesuits, all of them are pro-communist. And they have basically taken over all our institutions. And they are nothing but liars. To even claim that they're a Christian is nonsense. All these people basically have a foothold in this country. 90% of people in Congress are either Catholic or have some Catholic affiliation. And I'm not saying that there aren't some Christian people that are Catholic, but most of them, their allegiance is to the Pope and whatever the Pope says. Not what they believe as a Christian or to Christ. It's all about the Pope and his ideology. Now, I agree with what some people are saying about the national anthem. I think a lot of people have turned that into an idol. Now, I salute the flag, but I only do it out of respect. I don't worship the flag, and I don't think anybody should. Now, I don't know if that's what he's trying to say. And there are some people who worship the flag. Maybe so. But it is very disrespectful for these black people, the athletes. There are some white athletes that are doing it too, that are kneeling down. Now, I don't see any problem with them protesting. I just don't think it's appropriate at the time they're doing it. Everybody should have a right to have their own opinion, but they need to do it in an appropriate way. And you don't need to cause all this racial division because of it. Okay, it says Steve Bannon showed up too, and his revivalist message of economic and cultural nationalism also wowed the crowd with an altar call to make war on the Republican establishment, because you are the transmission of the best values of the Judeo-Christian West. Okay, for one thing, I am not a supporter of Zionism. I've done plenty of research, and Zionists are behind a lot of all the wicked things that are going on in this country. And this is not video about Zionism. However, you need to do your own research to find these things out for yourself. Making a war on the Republican establishment, there is no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. All of them are bought and paid for by Soros and the Vatican, all these wicked people. The whole idea that we actually have a choice and that who we vote for gets into office, that's nonsense. Ever since the beginning of this country, every president has been a 33-degree Mason. They're all involved in satanic worship, secret organizations. So if you actually believe that who the person you're voting for is going to turn things around, you're extremely naive or delusional. I don't put my faith and trust in anybody. Now, I imagine that this guy, Jim Wallace, probably would have voted, or probably did vote for Hillary, because he sounds like he's probably a Christian feminist, which to me is an oxymoron. I don't know how anybody can be a Christian and a feminist. But anyway, because if you do any research into what the Clintons have done over the years, they have had people murdered. Look at all the money that the Clintons have through their organization. I mean, everything that's done in Washington, D.C. is sleazy. It's nothing but a cesspool of corruption. And I'm like, it makes no sense. How can you make $400,000 a year and then by the end of your 4-year term come out being multimillionaires unless there's dirty dealings behind closed doors? And you know good and well they push the agenda of these huge corporations in order to get this money to pad their bank accounts. We all know that. That's how the game is played. So if you think that Hillary Clinton's going to be any better than Donald Trump, you're a fool. Actually, I think some things would be even worse because she is so corrupt. She would probably be pushing really, really hard, along with her Democratic cohorts and many of the Republicans, to do away with the First and Second Amendment. See, at least Donald Trump has been trying to help with that situation. Now, what he does in private, I don't know. He may very well be for doing away with the Second Amendment too, because if he's really part of the establishment, which he probably is, and then and he just wants people to think that he is a good person, or pro First Amendment, Second Amendment. But at least we will have some of our freedoms a little bit longer. Whereas with Hillary Clinton, it's a total onslaught, and probably by the first or second year, we would have no freedoms at all. Would be under the total dictatorship of Hillary Clinton and her goons. Where she goes on here to say, Bannon's far-right media platform makes clear what the racial implications of this cultural nationalism are. The fact that Jewish and Christian values abhor the exclusion of other humans and hold every other society accountable for how we treat the poorest and most vulnerable was not mentioned. Muslims, of course, were always not mentioned. Now, this is something that I have a very major issue with liberals. Muslims are not good people. You need to do some research into what Muslims believe. They believe in what's called jihad, which is a holy war. If you don't agree with their ideology, they will either force you or kill you. So for me to feel sympathy for Muslims is nonsense. Because if they were to allow Sharia law to come to pass in this country, and you disagree with anything they have to say, especially if you speak out against it, you're going to be killed. So these liberals need to wake up and smell reality here. The Muslims are not your friends. Yeah, I agree that he's saying here, talking about terrorists being all blamed on the Muslims. Now, that's true. Now, I don't believe all of this terrorism is caused by Muslims. Personally, I believe it's caused by the CIA and our government. Because, that's how these people operate. And the deep state is nothing but communist, globalists who want to take over this country, turn us into a third world nation so that we will all become this kumbaya one world government where we all worship whatever they tell us to worship. That's the whole problem in a nutshell. And they're just using all these other excuses to divide people, to turn blacks and whites and Hispanics and all these other against each other. But fortunately, quite a few of us are awake, and we see through all these lies. Even a lot of black people who used to be so gung-ho for the Democrats are starting to see, hey, these people don't really care about us. They're just using us for their own political agendas and their own gain. And evidently this Jim Wallace is falling for all the Democratic hoopla bull crap. Now, he was talking about here about America First. It's not just a political statement, it's a theologically heretical statement. The body of Christ is the most international, racial, diverse community on the planet, in keeping with the teachings of Jesus' gospel. But that got passed over for another gospel, that of white American ethnocentrism. A worldwide hateful of others, including immigrants, refugees, Muslims, black athletes who take a knee. Curiously, Jesus didn't come up very often as the Values Voters Summit, except tangentially in Trump's pledge that everyone will once again say Merry Christmas at shopping centers, where we revere the one born in a manger by lining up for holiday sales. Okay, now this is ridiculous. America First, yes, a political station, but calling it a theological, heretical statement is absolute nonsense. Now, I don't know who all these people are that showed up at these rallies, what churches they're from, or anything. And neither does this Jim Wallace know anything about these people that show up at these rallies. And to just lump everybody who's a conservative into one of these hateful bigots that he proclaims all of us to be is absolute nonsense. This thing about America First, well, I mean, he wants to say that I agree we should help other countries. You know, we're a wealthy nation. However, in case you haven't been alive or had your head out of your behind for the past 10 years, this country has been going to hell in a handbasket. We're losing jobs like crazy. Personally, I know a lot of people that are unemployed, and I'm sure you do too. Now, how can we possibly help other people if you don't have a job and have any money? You got to help your own people first, and then you help people in other regions and other countries. Now, we all know that as Christians that we just don't keep all our money to ourselves and be greedy. Now, he just automatically assumes because you are conservative that you're a greedy bastard who doesn't care about anybody but yourself. Now, that just shows you how much he hates people who are conservative. Then he wants to throw in how the president and people in these who are conservative, who hate immigrants, refugees, Muslims, and blacks. Oh, come on, wake up and smell reality, dude. You know, all of us are immigrants. My ancestors came from Europe. Refugees, now I don't have a problem with refugees as long as we know where they're coming from, and I certainly don't have problems with immigrants. Muslims, I don't mind. We have some Muslims in the area. As long as they don't believe in pushing Sharia Law, I don't have a problem with Muslims. And I definitely don't have problems with black and other people, because they are our brothers and sisters. So this whole idea of lumping everybody who's a conservative in as being a terrible white supremacist bigot is absolute nonsense. He is falling in for the liberal ideology pushed by the Black Lives Matters, the Antifa group, and their master, George Soros, that despicable piece of crap Jew, who is not even a real Jew, for instance, to tell you the truth. He does not have any real Hebrew blood in his entire body. His ancestors come from Eastern Europe in a region called Khazaria. They are not in the slightest kin to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They are fake Jews who have absolutely no heritage. He has no way of proving that any of his people came from the Holy Land. So this whole idea of you speaking out against Zionists as being anti-Semitic is nonsense. These people are not some Semites. They're not even from the Middle East. If you're from the Middle East, you're not going to be lily white skinned like I am. I'm white. These people are whiter than I am. And we all know that the majority of these Zionist Jews are communist. They hate Christ, they hate God, anything holy. They push homosexuality, they push transgenderism, everything that's against what God states in His Bible, they are for. These people are, like Jesus called them in the Bible, they are Lucifer's children, Satan's children. They're from the synagogue of Satan, and they are evil to the core. They worship Lucifer. They don't worship Yahweh. They're Satanists. They want to destroy this country and bring about their one world order government with their master Lucifer as the leader of the world. Okay, let's go on. You look in Matthew and go through the Beatitudes, every single Beatitude. You go through Jesus' teaching, what he says he wants people to do. Donald Trump is the antithesis of just about every single thing that Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. That was Joe Scarborough, a conservative Republican, on his morning show Tuesday after the president's weekend appearance as the Value Voters Summit. Mike Gerson, former speechwriter and policy advisor to George Bush, another globalist, by the way, douchebag, wrote a Washington Post column on the same subject. When Christians ally their faith with bias and exclusion, they are influencing how the public sees Christianity itself. They are associating the teachings of Jesus, a globalist, when it came to the Great Commission. Yeah, he wants the whole world to be a Christian, but he does not want the whole world to be under the rule and thumb of a communist dictator, dum-dum, with ethno-nationalist ideology. Okay, now if you're against nationalism, which is having everybody having their own sovereign nation, then what's the opposite of being a nationalist? A globalist. Yeah, Think about it. What you're writing here, man. The faithful give standing ovations to the purveyors of division and prejudice. Okay. When anything takes priority over the faith, there is a good strong word for it: idolatry. However, I tend to agree with some of this about the idolatry issue. But there's nothing wrong with nationalism. Do you want the whole world to be controlled by a small elite group, people who worship Satan? If you do, then you're a globalist. I think we should stay Americans. I don't even believe we should be involved in the United Nations. Why do those people need our money? We should give to people who need the money and who we want to help. We should not be forced to give money because we have signed documents stating so. Now, I'm not going to give my money to somebody who goes around murdering people. Do you think we should give to the United Nations, especially the countries that murder Christian people? ISIS, for instance, these groups are slaughtering poor innocent men and children and women in Syria and Iraq and other countries because they're Christians. We're supposed to be giving money to these countries who support these ISIS people? I don't think so. Okay, he says, why did 81% of white evangelicals support Donald Trump? The polling shows it was not mostly about abortion, gay marriage, and religious liberty, as some of the leaders suggest, especially given the Democrats' extremism on issues like abortion. Some of that would be understandable, but these moral issues were not the main motivations for the white evangelical vote. Instead, it was guns, taxes, and how much they would make from the economy, anti-immigrant and anti-refugee sentiment, anti-terrorist and anti-Muslim visions of national security. Okay. Moral issue. So now we're virtue signaling about conservative people are white nationalists who are bigots, who hate blacks people, hate immigrants, and hate Muslims. Okay, now, who are the majority of the terrorist groups, besides the CIA, that are doing the blowing up and killing in other countries? Muslims. Are all Muslims doing it? No. But I would think you would want to keep these kind of people out of our country. We know that these Muslims are coming in here, and they are killing indiscriminately Christian people. Look, all you gotta do is go to the internet, and you're gonna see all kinds of articles about Muslims killing people, even here. So don't give me this garbage about these poor little Muslim people. They're being so oppressed by not being allowed to come to this country. First of all, if I wanted to go to another country and immigrate there, I would have to go through an entire process may not even be allowed to come in because they may have had their quota filled. And they don't automatically just take so many like we do. We take thousands of people. So the whole idea that we shouldn't be doing that is nonsense. This is completely against what other nations do. It doesn't make sense. And yeah, national security is important, by the way. Fox News seems to have set the white evangelical political agenda more so than the Bible. All evangelicals claim to believe. And for the political agenda, the Values Voter Summit decisively showed how the religious right has set aside its own alleged moral values for a political leader who clearly has none at all. President Trump shows us every day that he is devoid of the most basic values of humanity: empathy, respect for others, and basic human decency. The president's utter lack of empathetic capacity was again painfully revealed this week in the way he politicized the death of fallen soldiers and turned deep family grief into issues all about himself. Well, I partially agree with what he's saying here. Donald Trump definitely has an ego problem. And a lot of times he brings a lot of this stuff on himself. However, to blame the political beliefs and religious beliefs of conservative people as being the same as what Donald Trump believes, that's a fallacy. Unless you know every single person that voted for Donald Trump believes the same way Donald Trump is, then you're a fool. Because I can tell you right now that I don't agree with everything Donald Trump does, and I seriously doubt that every single person that voted for Donald Trump agrees with everything Donald Trump says and does. We only are given 2 people to vote for by the end of the election season. Usually one is so awful that you can't even imagine voting for, and the other one is bad. So you have a choice between bad and worse. And that's the way I see it. No real Christian is ever going to get on the political scene and have any kind of backing to get there. It takes millions and millions of dollars to get to the position of being able to be the elected person for that party to even be voted on. No Christian person could ever become the President of the United States. It's almost impossible for a real Christian to even get in Congress. If they do, then they're corrupted and they can't stay in there because it's so corrupted. It's just beyond me to believe that actually anybody believes that Trump or any of these other people are Christians. You know that Hillary Clinton claims that she's a Christian, but how can anybody possibly be a Christian with all the stuff that she's done in her life? I mean, I don't even want to go into all the nasty stuff that I've read about, but there's no way that it's even possible she could ever be a Christian. And now this is true. Donald Trump is a consummate worshiper of money, sex, and power, to which Christian history has always tried to provide an alternative to. Trump literally embodies what Christian ethics and history have been against, and all for the political deal with the religious right. I agree with what he's saying here. Trump worships money, sex, and power. So does Hillary Clinton and all the other people in Congress, Democrats and Republicans. So, that I will agree with. Trump has become the moral definition of the religious right. No, he has not. I'm conservative and probably on the right, but he is not somebody that I want to consider as being my God. He's not my God. Well, I tell you right now, there are a lot of things I don't agree with. And to lump me in there as being some type of hate monger who hates black people, who hates immigrants, who hates whoever, you're off base, dude. A widely respected white evangelical leader recently expressed to me his personal agony over how white evangelicalism has destroyed the evangel of Jesus, and bringing of good news to the poor. Another leader of a top national evangelical organization told me in a personal conversation that evangelical support of Trump will destroy our integrity for at least a generation. Okay, now who are you going to support then? You need to support your leaders even if you don't agree with them. Are you going to support Hillary Clinton and her baseless, vile agenda of killing all babies and abortion? Are you going to support her radical feminism where women have moral rights than men do? And she says this. This is not something that's a conspiracy and off the top of my head. Do some research, people. Do your own research, and you'll find out exactly what Hillary Clinton stands for. Not to mention all the perversion that goes on behind closed doors with these people in power. Now, I wouldn't be surprised me if Trump's doing some of this stuff too. But at least he's trying to slow things down a little bit, maybe. But anyway, I don't go along with supporting any of these people. I'm tell you the truth, I'm not even sure if I'm going to vote anymore. I've gotten to the point now I'm sick of politics because none of these people that are in political power are real Christians anyway. Okay, I'm trying to read this next part here. The issue really isn't just politics. It's deeper than that. Political differences and dialogue and debate is healthy in the Christian community. We are much better as practice independents who evaluate candidates, parties, and platforms with Christian value by our values. True value voters, both the ideological capacity of white evangelicals and the conformity to white identity politics, raises the deeper issue of discipleship. Okay, this is just liberal speak for white people don't like blacks and other people. And so therefore they're not good people, they're not Christians. American evangelicals have become conformed to the world, as Romans 12. A lot of people in this country have become conformed to this world, man. And includes you. Rather, we must become transformed by the renewal of our minds. Liberals don't renew their minds. All they think about is perversion. And you're pushing your transgenderism, your homosexual lifestyles. All the liberals are pushing that, even the so-called Christian liberals. What the apostle describes as our acceptable worship. Faithful discipleship and acceptable worship are now what are most threatened by the false gospel, the religious right, and the state church they are creating for Donald Trump, who is indeed the antithesis of everything Christ stands for and calls us to be. Okay, so that actually understand what he's saying here and agree with it. No, I do not think that the church should be involved with the state and vice versa. And if that's what they're trying to do, I am against it as well. And it is an antithesis of everything Christ stands for. That is very true. Now, if you're going to try to say that everybody who is a conservative on the right goes along with this, no, I do not. So I can say from this that Jim Wallace, I agree with some of the comments he's saying here. A lot of the stuff is just your typical liberal hogwash. He is a white person, I can tell from the picture, who obviously does not like white people. Or he's against anybody who is a nationalist, what it sounds like to me. I do not worship the flag. I do not worship the United States. I worship Jesus Christ. So yeah, that if that's what these people believe on the right, that I don't believe that people are really that ignorant. I mean, let's just think about it for a minute here. A lot of these comments that he was making, it sounds pretty much like what the Democrats are saying and all the other social justice warriors. that white American Christians are bigots. They hate immigrants. They hate Muslims. I don't hate anybody. It just makes me angry when I hear comments by people who are supposedly Christians who are spouting off the same nonsense you hear these worldly people say. This man is supposed to have the Holy Spirit as his guide, but he's attacking a whole group of people he does not even know. Just because I'm conservative and sort of on the right, doesn't mean that I have the same beliefs as people that they show on television. Because I don't agree with those comments that they were making either about praising Trump above Jesus. Like I said earlier, my faith is in Jesus Christ, not on Donald Trump. So that is basically my commentary on The Religious Right Will Rise and Fall with Donald Trump by Jim Wallace. This is published on 10/19/2017. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope that everyone has a good day, and if you have any comments, please feel free to post below. Thank you.